transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right.
Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has publicly addressed the Supreme Court's recent decision clarifying the legal definitions of woman and sex under the Equality Act 2010. The court ruled that these terms refer specifically to biological women and biological sex, a judgment with significant implications for the provision of single-sex spaces and transgender rights.
Let's not leave out of account that there is a small minority of individuals who are born in a gender they don't now identify with. Some go through a process, others don't, and that is very traumatic.
And I think if we're able to have that debate in a constructive way, actually we'll be able to come to the consensus. Transgender women's rights are women's rights, and it is our women's movement collectively that can have the solution to that and can work with each other to it.
Bridget Phillipson, Labour's Women and Equalities Minister, echoed Starmer's support for the ruling, stating that the government will continue to protect single-sex spaces for biological women, now with the added clarity from the court. She noted the importance of these spaces for survivors of trauma.
This ruling brings welcome clarity and confidence for women and service providers. Single-sex spaces must be protected. And Madam Deputy Speaker, this is personal to me. Before I was elected to this place, I ran a women's refuge in the North East for women and children fleeing domestic violence. I know how important it is, and always was to survivors, to have single-sex spaces based on biology, places of safety after trauma, time in a sanctuary which allowed them therapeutic support, healing from unimaginable male violence and fear. I remember, Madam Deputy Speaker, how hard countless campaigners had to fight over many decades to get any single-sex provision at all, to create women's refuges and to create rape crisis centres. And then later I remember how hard it was to convince commissioners that young homeless women trying to heal from terrifying acts of cruelty shouldn't be left in mixed-sex accommodation. I will continue to fight for that provision to ensure that women's safety, women's privacy and women's dignity is always protected. This government will continue as before, working to protect single-sex spaces based on biological sex, now with the added clarity of this ruling. And we will continue our wider work with commitment, with compassion, to protect all of those who need it right across society. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, this is a government that will support the rights of women and trans people now and always. This is a government that will support the rights of all people with protected characteristics now and always. This is a government that will support the rights of our most vulnerable now and always. And on that, Madam Deputy Speaker, there is no change to announce. Dignity and respect for all now and always.
However, the government's position has been criticised by opposition figures. Kemi Badenoch, leader of the opposition, called Labour's statement a shameless work of fiction, arguing that this represented a significant U-turn from previous Labour positions.
Leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank the Secretary of State for advance sight of her statement, even if it was mostly a shameless work of fiction. I could not believe my eyes or my ears this afternoon. In 2021, the Prime Minister said it is not right to say only women have a cervix. In 2022, he said it is the law that trans women are women. In 2023, he said, and I quote, 99% of women don't have a penis. I know what a woman is, and I always have. The people of this country know what a woman is. We didn't need the Supreme Court to tell us that, but this government did. A Labour government so desperate to jump on a bandwagon that they abandoned common sense, along with the SNP, who put rape in women's prisons, and of course the Liberal Democrats. The Supreme Court ruling is a powerful victory for the determined women behind For Women Scotland, and for people all over the UK who know how important it is to give privacy and dignity to women and girls who need it. But it follows years of battle, Individual women took action to uphold the law at great personal cost, losing their jobs and their reputations. A few weeks ago, I met the Darlington nurses who have been forced to bring legal action after a male nurse started using their changing room. Even their union, the Royal College of Nursing, refused to represent them. Women should not have to battle the NHS or their employers through the courts. Why has it been such a battle? Because something as simple as biological reality became politicized and corrupted by activists pushing this ideology as foolish politicians cheered. Even the Secretary of State, who said that this is personal to her, stated just last year that men should access women's spaces. Whether it is female victims in our courts being forced to refer to their male sex attackers as she, or the NHS using confusing gender-neutral language, putting the health of women at risk, this is a serious matter. At every point, we have fought for women. We faced hostility from activist groups and those opposite. In 2020, when we rejected Labour's calls to introduce self-ID, or in 2021, when the then Home Secretary, the member for Whittam, ordered police forces to stop recording offences by trans women in female crime statistics. The current Culture Secretary said that crimes committed by men should be recorded how they wish, that those convicted of serious sexual offences should be held in jails that match their chosen gender. It was crazy then, and it is crazy now. I spent years battling abuse from Labour MPs as I fought to uphold biological sex in government, and as I blocked the SNP introducing their mad self-identity laws. I will take no lectures from them on what to do on this issue. Women and gay rights groups like the LGB Alliance were even refused stands at the Labour Party conference. The idea that they have supported this all along is for the birds. The Foreign Secretary described opponents of self-ID as dinosaurs. Labour now says that they know what a woman is, and that transgender people should use services and facilities designated to their biological sex. They've never said this before. This is a U-turn, but we welcome it. Now that we have legal clarity, will the Prime Minister show some courage and do the right thing? Will he apologise to the member for Canterbury, who faced so many security concerns as she was hounded out by the Labour Party and was rebuked by the Prime Minister and many Labour MPs sitting there looking at me for stating what the Supreme Court has now ruled to be true? Will she apologise to the member for Canterbury? I doubt it. Will the Prime Minister crack down on the groups we saw defacing statues of suffragists over the weekend with the same energy he reserves for his political opponents? Or will we see more two-tier justice? Because the last time we saw Labour MPs standing next to them with no rebuke whatsoever. Will the Secretary of State ensure that the EHRC has the government's full support in its enforcement of the Code of Practice? And in particular, will she condemn those Labour ministers who described Baroness Faulkner's entirely correct position on the judgment as appalling? Madam Deputy Speaker, we need to root out gender ideology from our institutions. This government now has a serious job to do, as many organisations will still fail women. So I ask the following. As Minister for Women and Equalities, I published guidance for schools that made clear that toilets and changing rooms must be provided separately for girls and boys. She scrapped that guidance. Will she stand up to the unions and urgently publish what she now admits is the law? She also scrapped RHSE guidance to prevent schools from teaching contested gender ideology as fact. Will she now publish this guidance and remove materials that misstate the law? Will she act to stop passports and licences being issued with self-declared rather than legal sex? Will the government support our amendments to the data bill to ensure digital ID systems record biological sex accurately? And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I heard the Secretary of State. She says that she is here to protect transgender people. Many of them were misled by Labour's misstatements on this issue. Some are now left very anxious. She has not provided any reassurance, and she should not use them as a shield to protect her failure. This isn't the end of the matter, but the beginning of the end. There is so much to do, and the Conservative Party, under my leadership, will be relentless in ensuring the government does the right thing.
Despite the official government's stance, leaked messages revealed that some senior Labour MPs are considering ways to challenge or circumvent the Supreme Court's ruling. This suggests ongoing internal debate within the party about how to implement the judgment and address concerns from trans rights advocates. The ruling has sparked protests from trans rights activists who gathered outside Parliament to express their opposition to the decision. Meanwhile, campaigners in favour of the ruling celebrated the court's clarification, arguing it provides certainty for service providers and businesses in delivering single-sex spaces.